Central Civic and Event Center, DEA, Grand Central Civic and Event Center, 1031 Noble Street, and especially retail for the hotel. Any issues or questions as to any of those license applications?
I don't need.
Yes, sir.
So they're trying to really be established as a bar. Lounge.
And retail, yes, sir.
Doesn't they hold this ordinance? Don't we have an ordinance so we only have one bar for
Well, both of these already have a license already. Both of these, the Fenton is just transferring what's already there. And the Grand is already has one.
This is a different license they're applying for, right?
Yes.
Yes. They've got an alcohol license in different categories.
It's a different category.
They got an alcohol license as an event center, now they're working towards becoming a lounge. I remember we did pass something.
Yeah, I mean, you got a copy.
I mean,
I don't.
either we got to change that rule or.
Because what was happening, so basically,
It was for,
it's
one per block, right?
One block. And I mean, that is, and I hate.
No, you're right. I mean,
If we have something in an ordinance and we keep bypassing the ordinance, we're going to continue to be.
It is in Grand.
I would, I mean, I would
They
say
came in the ordinance. Right.
I think it was on the wrong side of that boat.
From my understanding, the ordinance that they were unaware, they were not to submit for, but they hadn't yet, you had to submit for an application for that license, for that particular event. Now, and I mean, and truly, you gotta understand, I'm not a fan of us dictating, so if it's only one bar, it can be on the block. I wasn't a fan of the ordinance when I heard about it in the past. However, with that being said, if it's on the books, one thing we need to start adhering to, either we need to suspend it, or we need to repeal it, or revise it. We can't keep just allowing different ordinances to come in, because what it looked like, they came in as a, get these special events license, and then they just hung around. And so now they've been there so long, well, they've been there, so we might as well just give it to them. I mean, it don't matter what me the Philippines, I just see this as being a future problem, maybe not with this ordinance, but with another ordinance. I mean, if the language is not, the language says we only have one bar per square block.
So, recommend we can put it off the table, Council.
I think we should also, because there are some other concerns that I have with Grand Central that I think needs to be discussed, before we vote on this.
So we'll put it off the table at,
Or you can pull out the agenda right now.
But the first item, the Fat Tire Fest, that's, y'all not talking.
No, I'm talking about
Okay.
No, and video was not an issue either. The issue was, that Dee Dee's talking about is, several years ago, there was an ordinance that was passed that dictated, I think, between 9th and 13th, there could only be one lounge per block, or block face, or something like that. I can't remember the exact language on it. I did not support it then. I still don't support it, but I was overruled, and the majority did support it, and so it passed, and it is, in fact, our ordinance. And if we want to bring it back up and discuss it, then that's an opportunity. There was a logic behind it. I didn't agree with the logic, but that doesn't mean that I was right. There was a logic behind it. And it had to do with cleanup and activity that was happening outside of these establishments late in the evenings that was damaging other establishments that are not in that business. And I remember a lot of the discussion. I don't remember it all, but I agree with you. We need to find a way to address it within the body of our ordinance. I don't want to hold anybody back from moving forward.
Let me be perfectly clear. I don't have a problem with a bar then all y'all been doing, so let's, if we want to be clear and transparent, the ordinance says this, let's do this. Now, I'm more than willing to bring on, you know, if we didn't have a work session, to bring that back to the table and we discuss it and see what, you know, see what the people think. I'm good for that.
Well,
I mean, I'm not against.
No, I get it, I mean,
I noticed
yeah,
that
no, that's a
the
good point.
recommendation in all of this is that they don't have to re-advertise, and they don't have to do, they're just changing from a special events license to a lounge license, which, you know, that's how we alert our public as to what's going on too, so, you know, I mean.
The thing to do procedurally, I think, is to take it off the agenda here, and when Ciara, when you move to, or when the agenda is moved to be adopted, it can just be with the removal of this right down there. Tee it up and, take it off the floor.
But Toby did remind me of something, but I know this is more immediate. These are one of the issues that's going to be taken up as we talk about the comprehensive plan and zoning and other things. This is going to be discussed as well. That's one of the things that keep us here.
Good.
But that doesn't get revisited anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, with nothing else on item one, folks, let's move on to the proposed 2023 fee schedule.
Yes, sir, this is just housekeeping. We have not done some of these things in a while. And of course, with the opening of what's going to happen on the 11th and Noble, as well as what's going to happen with the whole auto parts, we have some other fees that's going to be forthcoming, and we've changed some of them, especially with the museum. The museum is doing quite a few things to help with revenue there, and those are bills been vetted. So those are the things, we have to do this through the council, actually make these changes through ordinance, and then it will go into effect 1 January. And just so you all know, we've already talked with the hen group. If they actually get their license in October or November, it still will be good as they transition to 23. They wouldn't have to get another one until the following year. So that's been discussed as well.
Very good. Any additional discussions? Item 2, we'll actually pick that up as subsequently. All right, let's move on then to item 3, proposed reallocation of CDBG funds.
Yes, so those are 2019 funds that not going to be utilized. If you look at what you have in your handouts, these funds are not being used, but we got to get them used off the books. So that's the money that's going to be used, the $149,000 is going to be used for public works to do some more nuisances as well as other things. But it's already, those fundings, those places are not using those funding. Of course, group homes for $119,000. Group homes is not going to happen, so we just reroute the fund so they can be spent accordingly.
Okay. Any additional discussion then to item 3? Let's move on then to item 4, folks, the new city hall HVAC.
Yes, sir, that's the new city hall HVAC, of course, with us taking over that. That is a cooling system that has the chiller and other things that's happened with it. Keep in mind that we already have a consultant, Mr. Vogels, our air conditioning consultant. That's just their quote for them to take over the city hall because again, it's become ours. We have to get up on that chiller, and also there's other things they may have to actually contract out, but they are aware and they're prepared to do this. And keep in mind, we don't have any utilities we have at the Star building that we are now. This is just one of those things that have to happen at City Hall. So this is what we need to do with our local consultants that already like see HVAC.
Any additional discussion? That's item 4. All right, let's move on then to item 5, 12th and Noble.
Well, the council, keep in mind at 12th and Noble, we have 2 parking lots at 12th and Noble. And of course, one of those parking lots that used to be a building there had to be, well, of course, we know that's where the hotel was going to go. But with Cobblestone, with what they were trying to do, their intent was if they got enough investors to help, the hotel would come. But that is fell apart. There's no investors that are coming there. We all know it's not with this hotel. So what staff is recommending is that as we move forward, and the hotel, we're looking at, let's concentrate on the north side, because the north side is building up, and we already got some of our consultants looking at the north side. But what do we do with those parking lots? As Councilman Jenkins and other council persons have said, how do we get the community involved on what we're going to do with that area? ideal time. These are just some rendering on what would happen to those parking lots. So just a recommendation for staff. How do we make this look? Keeping in mind, this is the city hall. As you're viewing it from the west, that's what we're looking at these two parking lots. How they, because parking right now is going to be a key downtown with everything that we have going on. So how do we make these parking lots look, make actually each area, make this look like an area for our municipal area, as far as like county, you're talking about our county courthouse, as well as our federal courthouse, and our city hall being all in the same place. How do we make it look? What do we do with those parking lots? So this is just some recommendations so we can start the conversation on what staff is recommending that we do. We've had a consultant came in within use grant money to have this rendering drawn, just to take a look at it to start the conversation, maybe bring the public in and just what do we want this to look like. That is recommendation, add that to council on how do we wish to move forward.
Mr. Folks, if I may add something just from a background standpoint, and I know that Councilman Jenkins has been involved with each downtown plan that we have rendered, I know since I've been here, and given the uncertainty of where the federal courthouse is going to go, whether it be block 148 or 49, there was always a desire to create a view shed, and that essentially is from what is now the previous federal courthouse to the other government buildings, looking from in this case, from an east to west, and having that view shed to some level to where there's public civic space, and then parking, as Mr. Folks alluded to, as a use for that area, because it does connect the federal, the city, and the county buildings, and creates that plaza effect, if you will.
And I will say too, particularly when the county courthouse and your trial there at the federal courthouse, there's a serious parking issue around there. I mean, there really is. It needs to be addressed.
I would love to see us take advantage of the terrain that we have there, where the hotel was going, and create some kind of deck structure in that component that would allow us to extend that green. It would take coordination and collaboration with the county in order to do that, but to take that, at least a portion of that parking lot that serves the courthouse and create a green from new city hall to the new federal courthouse with that some parking in that space for the county courthouse, but the majority of the parking to be in some kind of deck structure. We've got a hole there already. The drawing looks great, except for the fact that nobody's accounted for the fact that site slopes from Noble Street to the alley 20 feet. Or more. I think probably more. You ought to be able to get a 3 or 4 structure or 4 level structure in that existing hole right there. Take advantage of the fact that the excavation is done and enter it off the alley so that you created a point of access for all 3 of those facilities and a service area for all of those facilities. The top level can be at the level of Noble Street so that you got walk out for shopping and events and stuff at that level. But there's an opportunity there that I think I'm supportive of the concept, but I think there's an opportunity there that we're missing. I'm not a big fan of putting any structure in the green area. I see a little pavilion thrown there. And I know that's just a quick kind of study, but I think that you hit the nail on the head. That kind of visual connectivity between the spaces is important. And having that opportunity right there is a piece of that. And I see an opportunity. I'm excited to see the thought process moving in that direction. I just think we need to dig in a little deeper and utilize the space that we've got to a little greater extent. We're going to bring in an awful lot of dirt to bring that ground up like that.
One of the things I suggested when I first talked about it was possibility of building on top of it, if someone wants to come in and build to it later. Then they have the parking deck under it, like they do, on ground level, like they do in some places. When they have the, hotel with two buildings with a park structure right next to it.
Right.
But yeah, I think, parking structure and for, for parking for the employees, or city employees, as well as some type of covered walkway from the top deck, at least, leading over across where they won't have to be the element sometimes. I dream big with this.
I know we got parking behind the new city hall as well, and I see what our parking needs are in our current location. It's not significant. We're not talking about 100 cars. We're talking about, 20. That's what I'm seeing, and when I go to city hall.
Right, we got to look at it when we have city council.
They're building more there.
Yeah,
I
actually,
get your point.
there's 7 spaces attached to the courthouse that actually use for 7 spaces. But there is an opportunity also that.
We own a lot behind it too.
Yeah, we've had discussion about some other parking lot possibilities.
Well, the lot on Wilmer, that would be the most convenient place for staff to park anyway, because that allows you to kind of come in the back and access there. This is more of a public entity when they're coming.
I feel like we need to move forward.
So I just need that, so what is the council, what I'm hearing from the council, they want us to look at a possible deck and then get some information on that and see about it.
Anything else on item 5? Before we get to item 6, I want to let you know, I'm going to have to get up and leave around 5. My daughter has senior night for volleyball tonight. Ciara graciously agreed to conduct a meeting, and I appreciate that, Ciara. So I'll during the task force recommendation, I may have to get up and leave. Which folks, I'm going to let you introduce our guests from the homelessness task force.
Yes, sir. I can't say enough about what this task force, homelessness task force is doing. Even though you may not hear it all the time, I know Councilman Smith as well as Councilman Roberts and some others and attached to it. But they're moving forward with this, and we, in the first phase of it now, we're talking about what we're going to do with this upcoming season with the, as far as a warming station, and we got an idea, but also we got other things that are going with this, that building, where they're moving along with that building. There's so many things that are happening, and you will find out the choice that y'all made to put this task force in place. You will see they're doing exactly what needs to be done. So I will let Shannon and, of course, Kyle, Kyle Bryan, who's actually over they've actually employed through United Way as to be over this task force, as well as Diane Smith, who's going to be, again, helping with our homelessness. But they're asking for $45,000 tonight. I think it's money well spent, and I think those are the things we'll pull it out of the center, and we'll work to what happened at the homeless center. They're going to have one place they can come, everything will be there, open up 24 hours continuously, and they'll staff it as well. So I think it's a win-win situation. So I'll quit talking and let Shannon please give us a
first of all, I'm going to let Kyle give y'all just a very brief update on the 1411 Gurney Avenue property.
So we are, since June, July, we have been working simultaneously, doing some things to think about what 1411 Gurney could be like on the campus of Anniston first. We've toured a couple of different spaces and places. We went to Georgia, we went to the way station in Birmingham, and so we've seen what else exists, what else is out there, to glean some of those ideas. And I'm excited to let you know that we have a floor plan for that facility based on what we learned from the other places, and we are in the process of getting estimates to see what is it going to cost to make that building look like what we want it to. And our hope is that we will be able to house between 40 and 50 folks in individual rooms in that facility. So we are continuing to move forward.
Can you explain, I know I sat with Shannon, but I think this was really good information, to talk about the differences in housing that will be available, whether that's emergency or transition, like what that looks like, for this building.
So in this particular building, there is a basement that has access a main floor that has access to Gurney. And then there's also a third floor that we're hoping, or excuse me, the second floor, we're hoping it can be expanded. And the main floor and the upper floor would be used for transitional housing, and this is for folks who are chronically homeless but are wanting to get back into society, to be incorporated, to get jobs, to get clean, to whatever. Those would be individual rooms on the main floor and the second floor, kind of like a dorm room. It's hard to imagine. Not quite as big as a dorm room, but they would have their own space. They would be able to have some dignity. They would be able to have some privacy, which is not what you find in a typical congregate shelter. That being said, the basement would be emergency situations. So where we would hope our warming shelter would be in the cold months, and where during the summer when we have heat advisories, it would be a cool place to go, and also a multi-purpose area as well.
And just to expound on that basement, that would be the place where after hours, things like that, somebody just needed to stay a night. The police had someone that didn't need to be incarcerated, that didn't have nowhere else to go. That would be the emergency shelter portion.
Are you looking at any kind of family space? Are you going to have somewhere you could have, mother, daughter, or, father, son, or full family?
Yes.
That have the need.
So our hope is that by having individual rooms, they can be what they need to be. That being said, at the end of each hall currently, there are rooms that can either be double occupancy rooms or they can be family rooms. So currently right now we have 4 of those that can either be double occupancy or they can be family rooms.
Okay, and then next question I have is, what about services to address mental or physical illness, to workforce development,
Absolutely, that would be
resume building, those kinds of things that would help these people not just get them out of the rain or the cold that night, but give them a tool to get them fully back on it.
Absolutely, that's the goal. Once it would be up and running, these people would be assigned case managers that would do precisely that. They would help with mental health and rehabilitation and workforce placement.
So what, you said the total occupancy would be about 50?
Between 40 and 50. That's not including any emergency housing that would happen in the basement area.
So let me say this, in the near future, we want to come and give y'all a deeper dive in that, because we'll have renderings, y'all get to see, what in 3D, what the floor plans and all that would look like. And we can explain deeper what programmatic services would look like, what the case management's going to look like, the assessments that we're going to be using, with the families or with the individuals and everything.
So this one of that's coordinated with about security. Reason being, I spent a lot of time at the warming station last year, and I remember there were several incidents that was really undesirable. So I guess my question is, what is that going to be? Would that be an issue? I understand you're right across from the police station, but Carl Center wasn't that far either. Things could happen. So a lot of times, homeless people that we saw sometimes, you may have a boyfriend or girlfriend or somebody, someone who's come across each other before. We definitely don't want to get them a free hotel. But we also want to make sure that, like you said, everybody has dignity and everybody's safe.
Sure. And that's one of the things that we'll talk about when we talk about more of the programmatic stuff and the functioning of the facility, but that's pretty much a given that you would have 24 hours.
And one last thing, this is something that we'll talk about, we talk about the sustainability of this and all that, but I think, as we take this holistic approach in, trying to help or aid in the homelessness issue, we're talking about physical health, mental health and all that. We have our clinic that will be here next summer. It's supposed to be done next summer, perfectly, but it's on track. So
we could actually house a mental health professional, either at the clinic or at Interfaith Ministries, which would be right across the street, with time carved out specifically for those who are in the transitional housing or the emergency shelter, for those who, who need those mental health services. That would be immediate. I mean, we have Highland Health Services that can help provide long-term care for that. But mental health is just such a critical part of what's happening with our homeless residents right now, and making sure that we get ongoing care for that.
One last question. Have the task force reached out to the other municipalities in the county to try to get them to help with funding in as well? Because as we all know, I keep saying this, the homeless problem is not an Anniston problem. That's just a drop-off point.
So we have, and other municipalities are definitely interested in helping. What we're hearing from the ones that we have talked to is that they are interested in helping once we get this up and running.
So we should accept their residents until we get there. I mean, we got to put the bill. I mean, I know we're doing the right thing. And I said that just, but we need to make these other municipalities understand that they have.
That might be a role for some of us.
Yeah.
To take on their elected leadership rather than asking the task force to carry that water.
Let's go.
I think
let's talk. Let's on my mind right now.
And we will get that plan together. And I mean, obviously, it's going to benefit the entire community, all of Calhoun County, and especially if it'll benefit in so many ways. But I know that with our, law enforcement and stuff like that, there are just times that there's no alternative but to incarcerate, on those calls when, it's loitering and things like that, and then it kind of becomes a mental health episode, and there's just nothing to do. And so we really hope to ease, some of the burden of that with this new facility. We hope, we can realize and get it right. I know we can get it right. So we're excited about that. I do want to talk to you real quick about the warming shelter, though. We were really hoping that we would be able to see the basement kind of done and be able to have the warming shelter there. Obviously, this kind of thing takes a little while, and so we're not at that point where it will be ready, by November, which is typically when we have our first really cold weather, when we need to open that warming station. And so one of the things that we talked about and came up with is using the bridge. Anniston First United, of course, has been a great partner in all of this. And so the trustees, I think y'all have talked, you've talked with the trustees at Anniston First United Methodist. So using the bridge, is everybody familiar with the bridge facility? Great facility there on Anniston First United campus. It's in the heart of the social service community. So again, it kind of brings it back to the heart of social service community with Anniston Soup Bowl being there, Interfaith, The Right Place, and others, just right there in that vicinity. And so it's really United Way and the task force and the other partners taking on the role of running this facility and providing staff that will be trained with mental health first aid and understanding how to interact with our homeless. We think that it benefits the city in the fact that it frees up Carver to continue to have their events. It kind of relieves the burden of running a warming shelter being placed on city staff and parking rec staff and that kind of thing. So we will oversee all of that as well as partnering again with Ms. Diane Smith and his hands and feet. She has been involved in this for so long, and it is her passion and passion of her new nonprofit as well. So we're excited about that partnership to continue to provide the meals and scheduling of the meals and all that. So we will, develop, if we can work this out, we will work to develop a relations strategy with the city, of course, with Calhoun EMA, word out regarding the shelter on those opening and closing dates. We're also going to be meeting with the steering committee, which will include EMA, representatives from the city of Anniston, and representatives from the task force, along with Ms. Diane, to really work on the protocols and policies of that Mormon shelter. Will be low barriers, so everyone will be welcome. And there you go. I tell you, one of the best things about the Mormon shelter for us is not only being able to provide that space for our homeless and those who need it, and not even our homeless, but those with inadequate heat sources and those who need it. But it really helps us get to know who the homeless are and what their needs are. We got some of the best data collection from the warming shelter last year to help us really just kind of know what the needs were and what was going on with our homeless community. Just to let you know, we'll continue to share all that data collected with all of our partners, including the city, as well as do a financial report at the end, just accounting for how the funds were expended if y'all decide to do this. So we're asking for $45,000. I think y'all got something in your packet that had the budget, and it's a very simple budget. Pretty much it pays for an agreement with the bridge, where on those cold days and when we would need the shelter 24 hours a day, it would just help them offset their expenses with utilities and things like that, and then staff, and then I think there's about $3,000 built in for things like replacing linens and supplies, cleaning supplies, any incidentals that may go into that. I think it was an even $45,000.
I think it's money well spent, honestly. I think it takes I don't want to use the word burden, but it does take the burden off of our city employees who are not necessarily trained on how to deal with people with, mental health issues and some of those physical issues that we were experiencing during the warming shelter. So I'm all for it. My only question for Mr. Post is, it may be in here, but I can't find it. Where would we be taking the 45?
Keep in mind, that's one of the things, keep in mind that we knew these things like that would happen, and that's why we asked for the contingency fund, or in the budget that says reserve funds. This will come from that reserve fund, because we understood this was one of those things that would happen during the year, so we don't have to go back and do a change. It's already all what was said for those reserves, just have to be approved by council for what those reserve funds will be used for. So it's there. And if I may say anything, I'm most excited about this. The council wanted to take a holistic approach when they put this task force together. This task force is doing just what you all asking for. And we said the first phase would be coming with a warming station. We thought Glen Avenue would be open, we thought the basement would be open, but they came, they're forward thinking, they're thinking outside the box, but it's all going to be on the campus. So we transition phase this to this phase, and then next year when everything's running, we already got the warming station in place. So I think this just works, makes so much sense. They're doing what you all signed them to do, and I think again, this is going to be a model for this whole side. This area, I really think it is.
We are still looking at the cooling piece, right?
So again,
We are still looking at a place for cooling station.
we do the same thing. That's what you're saying.
Okay.
We're looking at that as well.
I've seen a bunch of people laid out on 15th Street. I mean, I counted about 7 or 8 people. I was picked up right there down the street from the bridge, but they just passed out.
So the next council agenda will be on here asking for that 45,000 from the reserve funds.
Thank y'all so very much. This is long time. You're not getting paid for this. You're volunteers, spending your time to help other people. And I greatly appreciate everything you've done.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right, we'll move forward with the downtown parking deck, discussing the lease.
I think if anybody's been around a while, we had a parking deck downtown that's attached to the Commerce Building. And of course, we talk about graffiti, and we talk about other things, homeless thing there. But what we are proposing here is that, and I think the council, this has been brought to the council once before, but it sort of fell through. We're proposing actually to lease that parking lot out to the owner of the Commerce Towers. And he's going to come in and actually clean up everything there, repaint it, and make sure, and he's going to use it for his building, make sure the lines are there, everything, and control that for the Commerce building. We're looking at this thing for $1 per year, and he actually keeps up and he pays for everything.
parking is just for commerce?
Well, right now, it's just open wide open, but right now, Commerce Tower will control that. We have within the lease that some things on the weekend, the city can use it as well, but it will still be the city's parking lot. But right now, all it's been is open, and homeless has been there, so many things have been going on there. They've destroyed it, there's trash under there. What it's gonna do now, it's gonna be a purpose downtown. Now it's an eyesore, but with him coming in and using that, it's gonna be able to, more people come to the Commerce Towers, more things that come downtown. But it's also a upper parking deck that was going to help the city as well, which is on the top side. But it's a win-win situation for us right now because we just put a gate up there to make sure nobody gets in there. But with someone controlling it, we're going to have a parking deck that looks like it's supposed to look and bring people downtown instead of right now being an eyesore and people being afraid to even use it. So I think this is a win-win situation. The council approved once before, but again, it fell through. This young man, he seems to know what he's doing. He's actually investing in both 2 buildings in the city, so I think this will be a win situation. So there's a lease in there that talks about it. We already had a meeting with him last week, so he's ready to go. So that's the only thing we can release as well.
Before we get to the city manager updates, I did want to bring something forward. The trash ordinance, I know we discussed the suspension of the ordinance, and I know that because the bills have already went out for the end of this year, we can't start with the new rate that's going forward. So I'm just trying to figure out, we need to be able to tell the community, explain to them, what changes are being made, why those changes are being made, what do we plan on implementing extra for that additional funds that are already there, and when this is going to start. This is just my suggestion, in my opinion, and I believe that Bruce might have, I don't know if you guys have had that discussion or that legal opinion. I think that we should just, when it starts in January, I feel like we should just start over. I don't think that we should hold anyone accountable for, missed payments from prior years, simply because there was no enforcement piece from the city. So I don't know what that's going to look like on our end, but I do feel like that's something, even the additional 4 days of the dumping, so 8 days total from the city in each ward, I think those things need to be put out so people are completely aware, when this is going to start. And if we have to do a suspension of this ordinance, is that something that we need to bring forward at the next council meeting?
I think it's on you to talk this work session. For the fees we're talking about, with us passing the fee schedule as well, all this is going to be included in what we're going to do, just like we talked before. Just what happens with that extra $5 that goes with it. All this is going to be talked about. We're talking about the recycling, other things that come with it, and I think everybody's starting to see. And you all saw yourself when we said there was a whole lot of stuff out there, but when you ask people where do we need to pick up when we did our Anniston changing days, it wasn't as many as we thought it would be. So I think it's just the things you can see that Public Works really is getting out there, picking up more, and with us able to actually assign more people. I think they understand this extra $4 or $5 that comes in, it is going to be all, and they're going to see a change as well with those things.
You talk about forgiving past debts on this stuff. Julie, can you speak a little bit to what kind of forgiveness we're looking at if we did that? If are we looking at $100,000, or we're looking at
we're talking about, if I remember correctly from last time I pulled it up, closer to 900,000. And we, as far as that we haven't enforced, we haven't run on people's credit reports. We do collect anytime we can. So we have been collecting past bills. We just don't report it. We just didn't report it on the credit reports. So there are different levels of enforcement, different things we can do.
So are we saying now that we've got the social security numbers, because that's something we recently got or have received, that we are going to now run that on people's?
I would think it'd be more likely that we send it to the state and let the state take it out of tax. The state would take it out of whatever tax returns or whatever, and that's the way a lot of other places do it. That's another method. There are several ways that we can do it, and we've been working on coming up with the way that we want to go forward with that, but we are talking about closer to $900,000, and that's with caveat. That's if you count duplicate counts and stuff too. I mean, I can't quote you exactly what it
to rightly or wrongly, or is this just?
We're talking about people that have, like, in a lot of cases, people that just haven't come in and paid their bill. It's not all cases, of course, but we're not talking about people that have exemptions. People that have exemptions are in a different category, that's not counted. That's not counted.
We're not talking about people that were wrongly granted
No,
exemptions.
you're talking about
either, are we?
Right, no.
Okay. I just want to make sure that we're not going to go back and say, not only were you not exempt, you owe us.
Right. I'm going to give that.
Yeah.
There are people that.
That's our fault, as much as anybody's.
I just think it's something we should really think about before saying that we're going to run that on people's, through the state. And the only reason why I say that is because there's some, I don't want to put blame on the city either, but there's a level of accountability that hasn't been there on the city as well. And we're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars from individuals who, honest to God, are not going to be able to afford it. And that's just the reality of all this. I understand saying we're missing out on $900,000, but we've been missing out on it for years. And there's never been, I mean, there's levels of enforcement, as she was saying, but there's never been a true level of enforcement, which is why people haven't paid, so.
It may also be an opportunity to create some kind of payment plan structure where it's, hey, instead of 20 a month for your garbage, you're going to pay 25 a month until you overcome this, or 22.
Finances are-
I mean, there's got to be ways
That's an option, they're going to come with that option.
to make that work for people so that it doesn't, yeah, I'm not at all in favor of going to somebody and saying, well, you haven't paid your garbage for 6 years, and you owe us $880. And we want our money now. I mean, it's fine to say, hey, you owe us $880, we're gonna set you up and you're gonna pay it off over the next 3 years or the next 5 years or something like that, so that it doesn't kill somebody to get back on the right side of things. I mean, other companies do that, when we get in trouble like that, we ought to be consistent. But, you know, I'm more than willing to look at it and talk about it more. I don't really understand just having a hard number like that, how many people are impacted, and what is the level of impact, what is the severity? Are we talking about people that owe $2,000 and $3,000? Are we talking about, you know, or are we talking about people that owe 30? You know, hell, I didn't pay my last 6 months, so I owe 70 or something like that. You know, I mean, so we need to be able to understand exactly better what we're dealing with, I think, in order to be able to, for me anyway, to offer a more educated kind of posture on that.
If we can get some of those options that you were talking about at the payment, so we can continue that conversation.
What I'll do is work with Bruce and Julie together and get something, recommendation to the council maybe for, if not the next work session, the work session after that, so we can have, so we have.
And if forgiveness is an option, what would that impact be on the city financially? Our last one, city manager updates and capital projects.
As always, as I promised council, periodically, I want to give you an update on the projects that we have in place. If you, I can put those in your Dropbox. I want to know if you have any questions about the closing and I was finished. The training center is running on schedule. Don't think we're training schedule, the whole up, it should be finished by November. But the HVAC is a hold up due to supply system, but they believe that will be in place and ready to go by December this year. Then of course, the biggest thing, the sanitary plan, of course, is running on schedule. If anybody had to go back looking at it yet, to see how they're cleaning out back there, the things that they've done, that's getting ready. Retaining walls are going to go there. So you're going to start seeing a whole lot of difference. The roof has been replaced. They're getting ready to see some difference, but June 2023 is still the time frame for it to open. There's been no change in that over the time frame for that. 14th Street, I know you all been busy there on 14th Street.
Can we get a press release? Can we get a press release?
This morning, we're talking again, talking with Mr. Patterson this morning, and talking to Mr. Wilson, have talked to the engineer, that it's needed to be activated within the next week and a half. Somebody's out there, but it's going to, they're looking at being finished mid-November. That's when they're looking at it.
Can we please get a press release?
So Jackson is going up there, Jackson's going to do all these updates.
We work in it every day. It is theirs, it is not ours. And we need to be cognizant of that and the way we handle this. And they need to be participants in the design process in as much as they want to be. I'm not saying that every idea that every citizen comes forward with is a good idea for City Hall. I think there needs to be a consensus, but I think there needs to be some engagement and involvement. And from a council perspective, I would like the council to have some engagement and involvement, which today all we've seen is kind of a block diagram of how that facility might be reused. I don't know where we are in the design process of that. We haven't been engaged, or at least I have not been engaged. So I would like more engagement, both personally, from a council perspective, and from a citizen perspective on that, and I'm going to keep beating that drum.
Well, the council can be involved, because again, it's your decision how you wish. Again, we have not done anything. One thing we've been given is the design that they gave to us. We could not do anything else in that building until we had the keys, until we had plans. Right, now we have keys and plans, so now however the council wishes.
Now is the time that
Yes,
as we start this design, and this references a construction and bid process. I'm talking about the design process. That's where I think we need to have some public input, some council input, obviously staff's input, because staff operates out of it every day. You know what your specific needs are as far as space needs, as far as connectivity and things like that. But it's important for us to engage our community in a project of this nature. And this is a one-time. We will never have this opportunity again in our lives.
Yes,
None
sir.
of us will.
And that's the reason we have a discussion. We're talking about the design right now with the architect, now the architect's in place. The design, however council wants to choose, he can, the Ciara process can be a part of this. However you all want to move forward. But I just want to keep in mind, April of 2023 starts the clock ticking, that'll be our 4th year within that building at Anniston start. That will be our
Well, I
4th
mean,
year.
we can start this.
So I will have to ensure that the architect knows that the council wants to be a part of this design process, but we have not designed anything. The only thing I've given you what we give you. And so we can have a number to talk about what we can actually get for. However the council wants to move forward with this, that's fine. So I will make sure that when we talk to the architect on Thursday, or he's coming in and say, let's start the design process. This is what the council wishes, because that's what we're going to do. Whatever the council desires, that's what we're going to do.
I'm just one voice.
I don't want to do anything to delay it too long, because this has dragged on way too long. Think about the federal courthouse that we just got. Did the public have an opportunity to give input on that? As far as I know, they didn't.
Yes.
I respect. Are you sure? I mean, you know
I
that for that?
participated in some of those charrettes.
Well, I was never invited. I didn't know one thing about it. I'm glad that you were. But I understand, I respect your opinion, Councilman Jenkins. But on the other hand, this could drag out forever and ever and ever.
I'm not suggesting that. I'm suggesting a very targeted timeline, a day where we offer it up to citizens, no different than we've done on so many other projects through all of our tenures on this body. It's not a lengthy process. It's something the architect should be doing anyway, internally within their own office. That's the way we operate. You're going to be doing some of this kind of charrette activity. You're just doing it in a public forum instead of in the back room of your office. It's the same process. It's just got more voices offering input. It's a good way to, it's critical, in my opinion. I agree, I don't want to see it slow down at all. I want us full speed ahead on this thing, but this is not a hard thing to set up. You set it up here in the meeting center, or you maybe have a tour of the facility as a part of it, so you can talk about things before you get in there, set some parameters. We get involved. You have teams that sit down with various members of the design team. They all kind of orchestrate the process. Everybody comes out of there. Not every idea gets accepted. That's not what I'm saying. But everybody has an opportunity to at least weigh in on the process.
I think it's critical that the employees have input. To me, that's very critical, but I'm not even sure if the public is knowledgeable enough to take that and run with it. I mean, I don't know.
I understand, both conversations. I think that if we can create like a timeline on, is there an estimated time when we want to be able to move, to the city hall, once we know what that date is, create that timeline of shorts. And if people want to be involved, just like we did with the city planning, or comprehensive plan, allow them to do so, and they have to be there. If they're not, we'll just move forward with it within that timeline.
Yeah. I'm okay with the, hey, this is our schematic layout. We're going to present it to the public, at a one-night meeting and give you an opportunity to voice your opinion on this or that. So there are a lot of good ideas out there. I've received some from people local here that have an interest in this, that have sent something to me that said, hey, have you looked at this? Hey, have y'all looked at this? As you move forward with this, I wish you would consider this. Now, are those ideas getting conveyed to our design team? I don't know. But it's important that all of those things, design is a very collaborative process. Effective design is a very collaborative process. And it involves the end user, it involves the daily user, it involves the design team, and it involves all of those disciplines are important to yield a successful result. I don't want to slow down the process. And if at the end of the day we determine that, hey, we're going to have a schematic presentation and a preliminary presentation, because they're going to have that presentation to us. It's a part of the state contract for architectural design services. They have to present at those different timelines in the design of the process. Now, once you get to a certain point, you got to get out of the way and let them do their job. Let them finish the design documents, get the bid package together. But in those early stages of design, that input is very important. I believe it with all of my heart. And if it takes an extra day to get there, then it takes an extra day to get there again. This opportunity will not come in this community again. And we can just hand it over to somebody and tell them to get it done, and we get in there and we end up with, I don't know if I remind you of our old city hall down there and the maze that it was to get from one office to the next, and there was no input from anybody in there. We just kind of fit that in, and that building was not a very effective building for our citizens or our staff. We have an opportunity, a good one, and we got some great moments. We'll
set this up. Alan probably got here with the Councilwoman, but I can't really, there's limited things that we can do to the inside of that building. There's limited, we had no space for parks and recreation down we had. Moving somebody in the basement, there's limited things that we can do in that building. As long as everybody understands that the historic, the only ones to be put here, with the place we have people and put in now, we got to use the space that we have. We have to use the space that we have. And using the space that we had to make some changes, finances, certain things that we can't accommodate in that building because of the historical structures in that building. So there's a lot of things that's why we're limited to what we can do. And again, we're limited to what we can spend. That's why, again, I want to be frugal with the fact that money as well. So we're trying to put staff in there as low cost as possible and make sure it fits. And that's the problem we have. We're trying to place a bar by having a pool inspection to the basement. We got to retrofit that basement. We can only do so much as long as everybody understands.
Any other?
Yeah, what's the call?
Yes, sir.
The city market.
Yes, sir.
Building. So that building belongs to
The city.
and that building was acquired by the city out.
It was given to us.
It was given to us.
Yes, sir.
So I just wanted you to say that in this meeting in public, because there have been some people out there saying we're making backdoor deals with people to put the market in.
We
That
spent,
building was set up for demolition, and it came before the council, and the guy asked, instead of going through the demolition process, he turned the building over to us.
those are not even in this process, that building was just gonna sit there with nothing, and we had that building donated to us. And then when I had researched and listened to the council, we figured a way that we can actually maintain the historical look of that building as well and do something with that block.
But we did not spend any
We didn't spend
public
any
funds on that building.
Not at all.
Not purchasing it, no.
Not purchased.
Not personally, no, sir. All we
No,
do-
but we did discuss, and why it didn't make the demo list, we did discuss, I mean, it was a regular discussion as to why it wasn't on the demo list, I can attest to that.
Anything that's got any questions on these updates, but I think it's pretty, Golden Spring Drainage, of course, is moving as well. And just let you know, we did take care of that, what's the street name? Common, there we go. Common Drive, that's taken care of, and Public Works continue to take care of other things over there, and we came out in the meeting. So that continues as we move forward. Again, I talked to the county today, the county don't think they're gonna be in there doing any more work more than maybe 2 to 3 more weeks. So that we finish in Public Works, we're going to finish, then it's ready to move forward. So those things are being done. Of course, again, Councilman Roberts in your area, West Anniston, you know where we're moving on that. We've got everybody at the table, so we still continue to talk, and we're moving forward with that as well. The only other thing new to this is the Lake Street Avenue paving. Of course, we're going to engage Sting to start the contractor actually doing the design and everything for that. So that should be moving along, and they're going to do the bid process, and that should be moving along pretty quickly as well. So that's where we are, and we'll continue to do that base. And like I said, Jackson does this publicly, actually put these out there, so if anybody has any questions, sometime tomorrow, Jackson is actually going to go live on our Facebook page, and I told some people to call me about 14th Street. We will give you an update, and if we need to do more, just let me know, and I'll let Jackson know, and we can give you continuous updates as 14th Street starts to come in place, and I will reach out to Jackson as soon as they start, go out there and take pictures and let them know, we'll follow track the progress on 14th Street, because I really ought to get beat up on that. Yes. That's